So in this tutorial, I'd like to teach you a little bit more about one of the links in our course navigation bar. So here I am currently, I'm logged into my Sandbox course. So if you're currently on the dashboard, click on one of your courses, whichever one you're choosing to work in at this time. And I'm going to scroll down here in this navigation bar to the very bottom to see settings. Now, if you're not seeing this navigation bar, it probably just means you need to click on this icon in the upper left-hand corner. So remember, you can click this to either hide or show that navigation bar. So with this navigation bar shown, I'm going to scroll down to Settings, and I'm going to click on Settings. This is going to bring us to a very important page, the settings page for your course. So whereas previously in Account, we had gone to our global settings, which set up things for all of our courses that are going to be used universally, this settings panel we're in right here is specifically for whatever course you're in. So for me, it's for my Sandbox course. So it's right here, it's my Sandbox course. So let's see what's available to us. Within the settings panel, I'm going to have 5 links: course details, sections, navigation, apps, and then feature options. I'm going to let you know right now, the 2 of these that you're probably going to use the most are course details and navigations. I'll touch a little bit upon the others, but for the most part, you're probably not going to need to utilize these 3 links. Okay, so we're going to focus on course details and navigation, though I will show you what the other links represent as well. Okay, so let's see what we've got available to us here. There are 3 panels, just as we've seen before: a left-hand panel, a middle panel, and a right-hand panel. The left-hand panel here is just our course navigation, which we've already seen before, so I'm going to close it up. And now we're going to be looking at the middle panel and the right panel. So I'll come back to the right panel in just a moment, but let's talk about this middle panel. So we're currently in course details, and course details are going to provide us some information about our course. It's going to give us a start date, and it's going to give us a potential end date for the course. I'm not going to actually change these, and I don't think that you're going to necessarily need to change them either. These are probably already going to be set for you by web services. We can scroll down and we can see what the language is for the course. Currently, I don't have it set, but it's going to default to English. And then it's also going to tell me a little bit more about the amount of storage I have in my course, which is 500 megabytes. So this course, I can store up to 500 megabytes of information. Might not seem like a lot, but when I start talking a little more about the different features of Canvas, you're going to see that we're actually able to utilize this amount of storage with little to no problem. I've got a checkbox here for grading scheme to enable course grading scheme. I'm going to leave that unchecked for now, but in a later series of videos where I'm talking specifically about the gradebook and about grades, I'm going to come back to this and I will check it and enable grading scheme. But I'm going to leave it blank for now, so just so you know, I will link to that particular video in this course in case you're already well on your way to building your Canvas course and you'd like to jump right to this tutorial. Okay, next, I've got a license. Private copyrighted is checked by default. I'm going to leave that checked. You can see we can actually do a bunch of different options, and this is mostly for what we would do with this course if we chose to share it in Canvas Commons. But for now, I'm going to leave it as private and copyrighted. Visibility. This is going to allow me to choose what can or can't be seen at the public or private level. I'm going to leave all of these unchecked. And then you'll notice these 2 boxes here are checked and I can't actually change them. That is a restriction that has been implemented by web services. In the format, I can choose if this is an on-campus, an online, or blended course. I'm going to leave it as not set at this point in time, but feel free if you need to update this so that it appropriately reflects what kind of course you're teaching. I'm going to leave the EPUB export unchecked. We're not going to talk about that right now. But then I want to come down here to a link that a lot of people typically miss because it's at the very bottom and it's just plain text. More options. I'm going to click on this, and you'll notice that when I click on this, this gives me several additional options for how I want my course to run. I can let students attach files to discussion, so if you're actually wanting them to put files in their discussion, you can go ahead and check this if you'd like to. Let students create discussion topics. If I want to specifically regulate the discussion, I'm going to uncheck that. Let students edit or delete their own discussion posts. Now this one can be a little tricky. The question here is, do you want to allow students to edit their discussion post after the fact? So it'll always show it, but if you want them to come back in and make an edit, if they accidentally type in something that's, let's say, a typo, this would allow them to go back in and edit it. The downside of allowing them to do this is, let's say that a student puts something in the discussion that is inappropriate, and you catch it, but you forget to take a screenshot of it, and the student then chooses to go and delete it after they post it. Well, that is now removed from the discussion post. So just keep in mind that if you're going to leave this checked and you're going to allow your students to edit or delete their content in the discussion post, that if there is any kind of incident that occurs, you're going to want to take a screenshot of that incident to prove that it actually happened so that the student can't go back in and remove it later. Let students organize their own groups. We'll talk about groups a little later. For now, I'm going to leave this checked, but if we do want to uncheck this a little later, we can do that as well. Hide totals in the student's grade summary. So if you uncheck this, it's going to show all of your grades in the gradebook to the student as part of a running total. So if you have 1,000 points in your course and the student has 900 of those points, it's going to show 900 over 1,000. If you choose to hide this, it will simply show the student that they have 900 points. Hide grade distribution graphs from students. When your students participate in assignments and quizzes, there are going to be graphs showing the grade distribution. If you'd like it to where the students can't see how those grades are distributed, you can click this, and then you can hide that. And the final checkbox here, I think, is one of the more important ones. I'm going to check it because I want to disable comments on announcements. We're going to talk about announcements as part of a larger series of videos in regards to communication forms that we can use with our students. But the main reason I'm going to check this, and this is also a feature that the ELC is promoting you check, the reason I'm going to check this is because this would essentially be one additional location in my Canvas course that I would constantly have to check for student communication. Announcements are great for discerning information and distributing that information to students so that students are aware of what they need to do. You can say, let's go ahead and remember that we have this assignment coming up. You can set specific due dates and reminders for assignments or quizzes or exams that you have. But if you allow students to comment on them, students can then ask questions or put additional comments along with your announcements, and you're going to have to remember to go back in and read those comments on those announcements. So by disabling comments on the announcements, it makes it ultimately to where you don't have to remember to check your announcements after you post them for student comments, which ultimately whittles down the number of different places you might have to check for student interaction. So personally, I like to check this because I think ultimately it just makes it easier to manage the content of your course. Okay, so if I have changed things here appropriately to where I'm happy, I'm going to click on Update Course Details. And now my course has successfully been updated. So I have successfully updated those settings. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at these other tabs that are under the settings panel. The Sections tab is simply going to show you which course sections are associated with this particular shell. I actually combined two sandbox courses here, so I have two sandbox courses in this one shell. I'm going to let you know right now that you probably don't want to do this, and in a later tutorial I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about the commons and how that can essentially allow you to manage a multitude of different sections of the same course. So for now, pay no attention to the fact that I have two sections here. As I said before, you're probably not going to spend any time in this tab. Navigation. Navigation is going to allow me to edit the way that this navigation panel appears to students, which I'll go over in the next couple of lectures. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can reorganize this navigation bar, and then also I'm going to talk about what this navigation bar looks like for students. Apps. This is going to provide us with a list of external apps that can be plugged into Canvas. Now, this gives you the ability to pick and choose what apps you want to attach to your Canvas course, but I am going to let you know that Web Services has requested that before you go adding apps individually, if you find something in this list, or if you find an outside app that can integrate with Canvas, don't try and implement it yourself. Instead, contact Web Services and give them all of the pertinent information for that application. The way they're approaching this is, if you want an application, there's probably another instructor that also wants that same application. And so instead of you integrating that app and nobody else on the college campus knowing that that app exists, if you recommend it to Web Services, they'll get it implemented and integrated in Canvas, and that way everybody at Collin can enjoy and utilize that application. Now, if you'd like to see which apps have currently been installed in Canvas, just click on Installed, and this shows you all of the different applications that Web Services has already implemented into our Canvas courses. And not installed apps are going to be the exact opposite. These are going to be apps that currently have not yet been implemented into our Canvas shells. And then finally, the last link that you can click is Feature Options. This is going to give you a list of options that may currently be in beta or may be additional options that Canvas doesn't have turned on by default. You can choose to read a little bit more about each of these options by simply clicking the little arrow next to the option. And then if you'd like to turn it on for your specific Canvas course, simply click on the icon here, the switch, and that will turn it on. Just so you're aware, again, a lot of these are in beta, so they might not feature full support yet in Canvas. So if you are going to choose to do any kind of feature option that has beta next to it, just proceed with caution and realize that if it doesn't work the way you expect it to, you can simply turn it back off once the course is in full swing. Okay, so that's our settings panel in terms of these different links that we can click here. Let's talk about what we've got going on over here on the right-hand side, because I want to talk a little bit about the different features here in the far right-hand panel. First, we have the option to share to Commons. Canvas Commons is a collection of pieces of courses or full courses that can be shared either publicly with anybody who wants to access them, with Collin College as a whole, or just with yourself. So if you'd like to work in a course and share the content of that course with some of your other sections of that same kind of course, you can do that through the Commons. And I'll be talking a little bit more about the usage of the Commons in a later tutorial. Student View. This is the feature that many instructors would like to find, and they don't realize that it's under Settings. So to get to Student View, you're always going to come to Settings in your navigation tab for your course, and then you're going to click on Student View to then turn on Student View. I'll be talking about that in the next lecture. Okay. Then we've got course statistics. When your students have started engaging in courses, you can actually start monitoring their statistics. So it'll tell you how many assignment groups you have, how many discussions you have going on, quiz questions and submissions, and you can kind of get a better feel for how your students have performed, the assignments and progress of those assignments, and many other features in your Canvas course. All right, let's go back to Settings. The course calendar. If you want to see due dates and times that you have scheduled in your course, you can quickly access the calendar for that specific section or course here. You're not going to use this. This would be to conclude the course. That, of course, is going to be handled by Web Services dictating when the course ends. Import content into this course. If you've got another section of the same course and you'd like to just import the content from that section here, you can do so by clicking this. If you'd like to export a Canvas shell after you've built a course a particular way, you can export it here. If you would like to reset the course completely, that is, all of the content is wiped and the course goes back to a basic state, here you can click this and that will do that. And then the final feature here is a very useful and very beneficial feature. It's called Validate Links in Content. Let's say that you've built a Canvas course and 3 years have passed since you built that course. Now, as you've been going through that course, you've been implementing hyperlinks to outside content and let's say that you've got a couple of publications that you link to for that outside content. You chose not to download and implement the PDFs, but instead just link to a website that had those articles posted on them. Well, sometimes, as you probably know, websites undergo development, they undergo changes, and a link that worked 2 or 3 years ago is suddenly broken. Now, what used to have to happen in the past was you had to go through and check each individual link. But what you can do here is you can click on Validate Links in the content. And Canvas will actually go through every single hyperlink you have in your course. And it will tell you if any of those links are broken. So here, I have no unresponsive links found, which means every single hyperlink I have in this course is working. So I will come back to this a little later on when we start building course content, but this is an incredibly useful tool if it's been a while since you've checked some of the hyperlinks that have been provided in your courses. So again, this is the settings panel for your course, and these are the different panels that are available within that settings tab in navigation. In the next tutorial, we're going to talk about navigation, and we're going to talk a little more about the student view.